Good afternoon, restaurant fans and restaurant folks. I'm Steve Barnes from the Times Union with yet another edition of Table Hopping Live, where we chat about restaurants, the ongoing pandemic, their attempts to recover, and all matter of related things. We are now just a couple of weeks, amazingly, before the end of the racing season. Some of you may be thinking, what racing season was there? In fact, they have had racing going on. There just were no fans. Early on, there was some hope that they might have opened the Saratoga race course to a small amount, maybe 2,500 to 5,000 fans. That never happened as part of New York's ongoing efforts to control the spread of the coronavirus and COVID-19, the disease it causes. But there still have been people in Saratoga. Certainly the bar and restaurant scene has been busier than other times of the year. And here to talk about that is Nancy Bambera. She is Chief Operating Officer and Vice President for DZ Restaurants, which has 3 dining spots in downtown Saratoga Springs: Chianti, the original, and then its younger siblings, Boca Bistro and Forno Bistro. Good afternoon, Nancy.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you too.
So you've been with DZ for more than 20 years. In fact, just about a year after the original Chianti was founded on South Broadway. So you've been there for 22 or 23 racing seasons. How does this one stack up?
Oh, it's very different for sure. I mean, the announcement of no NYRA, I think, was a devastating blow to many of us in Saratoga Springs. And the energy level here is a little bit different. I think we're fortunate that there are still people in town. But without NYRA, it's been one racing season that I would never like to see again.
How far off is business compared to typical Augusts?
I think we're upwards of probably 40 to 60%, depending on location, depending on your availability with outdoor seating.
And I mean, your restaurants don't have significant outdoor seating. So tell us about each of them, what they've got and how many people you can sit outdoors, because some places in Saratoga have spacious spots. You know, the new 550 on Saratoga Lake, they can probably put 100 people outside. You know, Prime at Saratoga National has gracious terraces and room, but you're downtown. You don't have that. Tell us about your places and how many you can seat outside.
Well, it's funny because prior to COVID, I always thought that I had 3 restaurants that were in some of the best locations in Saratoga Springs. When COVID hit and we got open for outdoor dining, I thought, oh, darn, we have very limited. We're very fortunate that our Forno Bistro location, which is on the south or the north edge of Saratoga, has a fabulous outdoor patio, two to be exact, and then they put some seating out in front. So we can seat about upwards of 100 people out on that patio. Our Chianti location, unfortunately, has very small space. They probably can seat between 12 and 18 guests in their patio. And then Boca, which is situated right on Broadway, can seat about 12. So very, very limited.
What are you seeing and hearing from your customers about their willingness to sit inside? Because, you know, down here in Albany, there's certainly a very strong preference for being outdoors. And the places I've been in Saratoga, people want to be outdoors. Do people want to come inside, or is it grudgingly, well, it's raining, or it's 92 degrees, or there's nothing outside? What are you hearing?
I think it's about a 50-50. I think that if you come into a DZ restaurant, you'll notice that there is some significant spacing, if not some walls that are put up that I think make people feel very comfortable. I do think the demographic or the age groups are where you'll see the variations. I think the older demographic completely wants to stay outside. Your younger millennials, they're happy to go inside, but it is challenging for sure.
One of the things that for me always defined going into Boca, certainly to sit at the bar and have shishito peppers or to have carpaccio at Chianti, was the vibrancy of those scenes. It was tight, it was close, it was busy. You know, people sometimes stacked up the bar, reaching over each other's shoulders. What is that done to the feel when you can, you know, people have to be separated at the bar and they can't? What's it done to the vibe?
Yeah, I think the energy is kind of what we always talk about, particularly in July and August. The energy in Saratoga is just pumping. It's really exciting. That energy is not really there this year. I think it's lost, you know, the camaraderie of dining with other guests, meeting other people, that doesn't happen. So you're literally coming in to go out to dinner with the group that you're with and you're leaving. So there really is not much energy.
And what is the requirement to order food with drinks done? Because Saratoga is the perfect place for a bar crawl. You might start someplace, have a drink, move on somewhere else, have a drink, and then settle for dinner, and then go for dessert and some sort of, after dinner drink. A fourth place. What is the requirement with food? Is it your sense that people have stopped strolling among places?
Yeah, I don't know that people are strolling as much as they would normally. For me, the ordering of food was not really an executive order that impacted me that much, because you primarily come to our restaurants to eat. You don't really come just to drink. But I don't think that there's a lot of that strolling going from one restaurant to another restaurant that's happening during this pandemic.
Has the pandemic changed what people order? What are you seeing differences? Anything different? Or are they just the same old things are popular and everybody likes what they've always liked, regardless of what's going on?
I think our regular guests, it's the same old thing. I think one of the things that the pandemic has done is made some new guests come in the door that maybe not normally, particularly during July and August, be here, because they can get in. It's not mad for the restaurant. So I think that we're seeing some new guests, and that's exciting to be building some new business while we're in this pandemic.
Given the restricted capacity, and are your hours shorter than they were before?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge. 23 years in business, 7 days a week, basically 360 days a year outside of the major holidays. We're now open 5 days across the board. So we're 5 days. Boca, was open lunch and dinner 7 days a week. They're now only open five lunches, 5 dinners. Same with Chianti and Forno. And that was primarily for staffing, financial decisions, to make sure that we could control it, not knowing how long this is now, especially that we're 6 months into it. I think that those were good decisions to make looking back.
What is your staff telling you about their income levels? I mean, because when you do have 50% capacity and shorter hours, and servers used to be able to, count on making bank during track season that might get them through what could be a slow November or a slow March. And certainly now that some of them are back to work and the extra government unemployment has run out, what are you hearing from them about their prospects of what they're making and whether this affects their future in the industry?
So I'm incredibly fortunate that I have a very consistent staff, and primarily my winter full-time employees that have been with me for 5, 10, 15 years are the ones that are back in the restaurants. I think management is this is where strong management comes into play. If you can run a very tight ship, your servers can make money and you can keep everyone happy. We've been able to accomplish that, and it's worked out really well. So I think our servers are they're happy to be back. I did not have one employee deny coming back to work.
Wow, that's remarkable. What are you seeing on the business end in terms of how long can you go on like this? I mean, when you're down 40 to 60%, and who knows how much longer this is going to go on, because here we are very nearly September. I mean, you and I first talked about this third week of March, and we were thinking then, oh, everything's going to be back to normal by July 4th, if not even better by Memorial Day weekend. And here we are, we're close to Labor Day. So what does this look like from a business prognosis? Do you really have to prune and trim and cut down on his expenses as far as possible and just figure this is for the long haul?
If you look at the statistics of the restaurant industry, we're going to lose upwards of $240 billion by the end of this year. I think that this pandemic is devastating for the whole industry as a whole. I think the federal government stimulus packages have helped. I certainly think that many of us can hopefully make it through the winter. It's a scary time. I've never lived anything like this in my life. On March 16th, I basically laid off, 95% of my staff. I had a 100% track record of never laying off an employee in my entire corporate career. I think the winter, we're going to have to get creative. And I think the help of the chamber and the local DBA and the Convention and Tourism Bureau to define how we can close up some spaces, get some outdoor dining, which is technically heated tents around the community, maybe open up the city center and do some sort of traveling restaurant booths. We have to be creative about this because I really, truly believe that we're looking at the end of the second quarter of 2021 before we're going to be fully out of this.
Wow. And are those conversations going on among the groups you mentioned saying, what are we going to do? Are you already talking about not only fall, but maybe even into the winter?
Regularly.
And
Yeah.
how many people would you say are involved? Is this dozens of people who either formally or informally are regularly communicating with each other?
Yeah. We have a pretty solid restaurant community in Saratoga, and we very much try to support each other. We work together to develop programs and things that we can do. There's about 15 to 20 of us that are working closely with, the community boards, and they've been very strong proponents to help us.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I didn't warn you this might be coming, but the State Liquor Authority now says if restaurants are going to have live music, incidental live music, could be guitar player 12 feet away, that you can't advertise it. Would you? I mean, you've got enough room on your Forno patio have you had live music out there?
I don't have any live music in our restaurants. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I do feel like some of our bars that would be having the live music is challenging in regards to making sure that they're staying compliant. I think that is where the executive order, or the SLA requirement is coming from. I think they're really struggling with these establishments that are choosing to deliberately not be compliant.
Well, okay, so those are the bad guys, and yet in the entire state, there's still only about 160 of them that have had their liquor licenses suspended, and that's out of 50-some thousand establishments in New York. And so that's not a lot, and I agree. The places that are flagrant in disobeying the laws, they need to be slapped down. And last weekend alone, the state police and the SLA and some other agencies conducted almost 4,000 compliance checks. But if as an amenity for your guests, you're putting you wouldn't put the flamenco guitarist up at Forno, but you're putting somebody out there as an amenity, and then you're not supposed to be able to tell anybody about it. It's just like, oh, incidentally, look, there's somebody with a hammered dulcimer.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you look at it that way, it really doesn't make any difference. And I'm not sure why why they're doing that. I think there's so many things that we can all question about what the decisions are, why they're making the decisions, whether it's the SLA or the governor. I mean, since we've opened for indoor dining, we haven't seen any major spikes in COVID, and I'm not sure why we aren't progressing into being able to be opened a little bit further.
Well, at 50% capacity, how many people is that inside at each of the places?
So the 50% capacity isn't as valid or as important as the 6-foot spacing. Unless you have a footprint to allow for 6 feet between tables, it's difficult. And many establishments can't even hit their 50% capacity numbers. Unfortunately, in the restaurant business, every seat is $1. And if you don't have enough of them to turn over, there's no profitability. I don't think our industry will even be able to be profitable again until maybe second quarter of 2021.
So given the time, what is your capacity indoors at each of the places?
So Boca has a capacity of about 100. I think they're seating somewhere around 45, particularly based with the loss of the bars. Chianti has about 87 seats, and I think they're somewhere right around 42, maybe 46. And Forno is much bigger. I want to say they're about 120 inside, and they're probably just about 50%.
And what are you seeing in terms of business this season? Are you filling up at least once a night? Are you turning tables? Or people just not staying out as late? What do you?
I think you're turning tables probably at least twice. I think on the weekends, if guests understand the movement of trying to move along a table and not sit for 3.5 hours, you can turn a table 3 times.
One of the things I've heard from some other people is that when folks do decide to go out, that there seems to be a little bit more of a celebratory feel, and so they'll go up a level in a bottle of wine, or people who wouldn't normally do dessert are going to say, you know what, I haven't been out to a really nice dinner in 2 months or since late February. I'm getting myself a dessert. Are you seeing any sort of indulgences like that?
I think people are thrilled to be out. I mean, I've received so many emails and letters, Steve, from guests that are just so happy. They appreciate the fact that we're really taking the necessary precautions to keep them safe, but yet let them have an amazing special time. I think they are, taking the next step of having different things that maybe they wouldn't normally try. I agree. I think it is a celebratory time for people to get together and feel safe.
So before we go, two things. One, give me one drink and one dish that people should try. Can be from any of the three things that you really love that you think show off what you do.
Well, the Del Chianti at Chianti, I think, is an all-time favorite. I think it's one of the most magnificent dishes. Thinly sliced raw filet with a gorgonzola sauce. It's absolutely scrumptious. Luke has a mint julep over at Forno Bistro, a mint julep smoked mint julep that is to die for. The presentation is incredible. He's an incredible bartender. I think either one of those are something that everybody should come in and try.
Great. So if you would tell us the names of the restaurants and when they're open, we'd appreciate it, and then we'll sign off.
Chianti Ristorante at 18 Division Street is opened Wednesday through Sunday from 5 p.m. till 9:30. Boca Bistro at 384 Broadway is opened. Oh gosh, now let me think about this. It's open.
Just say lunch and dinner.
Wednesday through Monday. No, it's open Thursday through Monday. Lunch and dinner they start serving at 11:30. And Forno Bistro again is opened Wednesday through Sunday from 5 p.m. till about 9:30, 10. Oh, and Boca Bistro is open for brunch on Sunday.
Good to hear. Thank you. We've been talking with Nancy Bambera, who's Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of more than 20 years at DZ Restaurants in Saratoga Springs. Nancy, thank you. Be well, and we'll talk to you again.
I can't wait to see you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Until next time, folks, this is Steve Barnes from the Times-Union with a Table Hopping Live. Join us again next Tuesday at 1 p.m. for another restaurant conversation with someone in the industry to talk. Oh, and I so desperately look forward to having these broadcasts when I don't have to talk about COVID. But if Nancy's predictions are true, this may be, April or May of next year before this happens. So until then, we will continue to bring the news to you, bring personalities and conversations to you. I'm Steve Barnes from the Times-Union. Till next week, eat well and